I don't think I've ever told this entire story from start to finish on social media, and I promised everyone on Instagram that I would actually tell it and talk about how I transitioned from being a graduate student, broke, depressed, sad, and miserable in my life to now being a full-time content creator, and not just a content creator, but a travel influencer where I get paid to travel. I also talk about skiing and tennis on my platform. I'm a vlogger. I do a lot of creative jobs, working for myself, and a lot of people always ask me, how did I get here? So like I said, I have never told this story online. I'm gonna try to do it in one video. I said I was gonna do it in a series, but I'd rather just yap right now. So put on your headphones and you can put it on 1.5 or 2 times the speed if I'm talking too slow for you. I'm gonna try to do this without editing the video too, so I'm just putting it out there. So it all goes back to how I even got into graduate school, which is a story in itself. So I was dating this guy. I got a boyfriend in my sophomore year of college, and he was also a scientist. So I was a biomedical engineering major, and he was a biochemistry major, and he was really interested in going to graduate school. So he was a year older than me, which meant he was a junior. And that summer, I remember he was preparing to go to graduate school, but he was taking his GRE. So he went to this program where he did research for the summer. And a part of that program was helping students learn how to take the GRE. Also did a bunch of practice exams. They also did research. And it was just like a really great program to get students into graduate school. And I had no idea what graduate school was. I had no idea what I wanted to do with biomedical engineering. I knew I wanted to be somewhat drugs related, or drug delivery related, but in my university, in my program specifically, we did not have like a drug delivery program within the biomedical engineering field. So we had a bunch of different engineering types, right? Disciplines, chemistry, chemical engineers, mechanical, electrical, and it was the first year of them having biomedical engineering. And because of that, it was kind of just really general and broad, and we didn't really have any specialties until my last year of school, which was just way too late. So at the time that I was dating him, I was not doing any research, but it was something that I was interested in because I heard him talk about it a lot, and he was just very passionate about science, which kind of made me more passionate about science. Of like, oh, like, there are really cool things I can do, because at that point in my undergraduate career, I just didn't see the application part of BME. Like I was taking like calc classes, so it didn't seem like something that was actually applicable in real life. And those are things that are actually interesting to me, like how the stuff that you learn in class is actually applied to real life applications. Like I was always a kid to ask, well, how am I going to use this in real life? Like that was literally me. And I wasn't even trying to be a smart ass about it. I was genuinely interested of like, how does this apply to my everyday life situation, if at all? So anyway, as we were dating, as he was going through this program, I kind of knew his study schedule because we would talk around his study schedule, right? So I was doing research in New Jersey. He was doing research in Virginia. And yeah, we were during the summer, he was telling me about his research. He was telling me about the GRE and all the things that he was doing to prepare for this exam that I knew absolutely nothing about. I also want to say that I did not have anyone in my family or even in my social circles that were looking to go to graduate school, especially STEM graduate school. So if you're someone that's either in graduate school or about to start this upcoming semester, then it is just a very completely, totally different ballgame than any other undergrad program you've ever heard of, and also any other graduate school program you've ever heard of. Because if you're like an arts major, you typically don't have to do the same form of research as you would have if you are a science grad school student. So if you're doing a master's or a PhD in a science related field, like your curriculum doesn't even exist. It's honestly just you living in the lab, which I didn't know about. I was just like, oh, this seems like a cool thing. I don't know if I personally want to do it, but I could look into it and just kind of see if this is something that I would be interested in. So I eventually started to do research. I believe it was that fall that he came back. I started working in a lab. So it was my first semester of my junior year, which typically is like considered late for most people who want to be in a graduate program, because a lot of people that I knew that were also applying for graduate school that I was also in class with, they had started doing research when they were freshmen. And I was like, how the hell are y'all even finding these opportunities? How does anybody even know where these things are happening? Like, how am I so behind? And I think the main reason why I was so behind is because all of my friends were athletes. They were all in other majors that weren't even science related. So I didn't have anyone outside of really my friends from field hockey, which I played collegiate field hockey. I didn't have any friends outside of that could really tell me of like how to do things in this science world. Like I was literally just going to class, going to field hockey, and I was like, oh, like that's what you're supposed to do, right? No, apparently if you want to get a PhD, you got to do extra stuff. So I didn't know that, right? So I jumped into research. I was working for an orthopedic surgeon who had just started his lab, so he was completely totally new to research too. And myself and one other girl were his first research students. So we worked with him as a part of a class project. So I had this clinic that I think it was like a 2 credit class or something that I was working with him on for that semester. And then he was like, oh, do you want to work with me in the lab? And I was like, yeah, I would love to. And that was when I got hired to work in the lab. So at the time I had 2 jobs. I had the lab job and then I had my tour guide job, which was how I had met this boyfriend. And I was working both jobs while also being in school, taking classes. And I was also playing field hockey. So my schedule was absolutely insane. It was diabolical. I don't even know how I survived it, because if you see my schedule today, you'd be like, girl, not even close. But anyway, so I decided to start doing research. And at first I was like, I don't like this. Like, I don't have any direction. No one's telling me what to do. Like, I'm a smart cookie, but like, I needed someone to just like tell me or guide me. And my research advisor was just like, hey, be free. Like, do what you think is best. You know, you're an engineer. And I was like, yeah, but I don't know how to engineer, sir. Like I'm very much new here. So it really was like a learning curve for both me as a research student and him as a research advisor. Because again, he was brand new to this. He had come from med school, where he was teaching classes in med school, but he wasn't working with engineers and like doing research. So yeah, it was totally new for him, totally new for me. So I ended up working with him for that semester and then also throughout the winter. And I was like, oh, actually, I'm starting to get the hang of this whole research thing. I kind of like this. So through that semester, that fall semester, that was when my boyfriend at the time was going through his graduate school interviews. And I remember I would like drive him to the airport so he could, go there for the weekend, and he would do the recruit weekends and stuff. And then he would come back and he would tell me, everything that happened and what he liked, what he didn't like, what professors he was interested in. Like he would give me the full scoop on everything. Not that I really cared, because at this time I was like, I'm not going to graduate school, whatever. But he was really into it. And, like as being a supportive girlfriend, I was like, all right, fine, I'll listen. So I became very used to his process of like what he would do before his interview, how he would pack, the things that would happen during the interview weekend. And I say interview loosely because some of the programs that he was applying to or accepted to for the recruitment weekends, some of them were formal interviews where he would meet with specific PIs, whereas others, he was kind of accepted. So he was kind of just like touring and trying to, get the vibe, like see if he really aligned with that school. So throughout that process, I really like learned what it was through him, right? So I didn't know if I was gonna go to graduate school myself, but I was like, I'm still dating this guy, so at least like I can see what he's doing. So by the end of my junior year, though, we broke up. So I want to say it was actually the spring semester. And I remember because all of my friends were also single at the same time. Like we all had boyfriends at the same time. And then somehow we all miraculously were single or became single at the same time. Also, I want to know that this is very weird for me to talk about relationships online because I normally never touch this topic with a 20-foot pole. So if you're someone who watches my channel religiously, do not expect this in other content. I promise you I will not be talking about relationships ever after this. But anyway, we broke up, and that's when I was like, as any Black woman would do, when I started to lock in and be like, okay, what am I doing with my life? Like, what do I actually want to do? I don't have this boyfriend like responsibility anymore. I have all my girlfriends. We're going out. We're 21. We're partying. We're going to clubs. We're going to Philly. We're doing all of this. And I was just like, all right, what am I going to do after school? And this is also the time where I started to get really into research. So during that winter semester, when I was doing research under the lab, my professor had come up to me and he was like, hey, I think you should apply for this conference that's next semester, aka in the spring. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm still getting my feet wet with this stuff. Like, I really don't know if this is for me. And he was like, okay, I'll, respect what your wish is, but like, I think you should go and start presenting your work and, talking about this. Cause he also had a huge budget. Like I was his only student, me and one other girl who was also an undergraduate. We were his only students. So he wasn't paying any graduate students. He wasn't paying any med students. I don't think any med students even worked for him at the time. And he was paying us, but he was only paying us part-time. So like, he was like, hey, I got to spend this money somehow. Do y'all want to go to a conference? And we were like, we're not ready. So during that summer, I did work with him again. And I was like, okay, actually, I do think I'm ready to start to go to conferences, because I feel like this will be the experience that I need to kind of push myself and at least like tell me what direction I should go in, right? Like if I like it, then I know I'm going to head in that path. If I don't like it, then I'm like, all right, scrap the whole research bit. I'm going to do something else. So what's ironic is that my research at the time was completely and totally unrelated to what I wanted to do. So like I said, I wanted to be a part of drug delivery, but my research was actually in orthopedics. And I was doing a lot of like 3D printing, like compression tests, torque tests. Like it was just very mechanical based versus I wanted something that was more like chemical based. So I'm working on this research. I'm working with this girl, we become tight, and she's like, yeah, I'm also looking at graduate schools, but also I'm looking at other programs that aren't, specifically graduate school, like I may actually get a job too. So we kind of decided to go through the process together, and I was like, all right, I am going to start studying for this GRE. And I remembered every single thing that my ex-boyfriend was going through, when he was studying for his GRE. So I knew the books that he had. I knew how often he was doing the practice exams. I knew what he was working on. I knew like the format of the GRE. So I was like, oh, I got this in the bag. So I started to look up schools that were really on the East Coast, because I knew I didn't want to leave and go anywhere outside of the Northeast. I was already in New Jersey, so I'm like, I just want to stay up here. Like, I don't want to go anywhere far. I don't feel like it's really like worth it for me for that. And also a lot of the schools that were nearby also had like a drug delivery focused program. So I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to apply to. And I was looking at the requirements for master's programs, because I was like, I'm so sick of school. I don't want to be in school for that much longer. I'm just going to do a master's program. It's going to be 2 years. I can just get my GRE done, get the master's done, and then I can find a job. So that was the plan, right? So the whole summer I'm studying for the GRE. I'm also going out and partying and, also training for field hockey, because I had field hockey that's fall semester. So I had also worked with my coach to try to figure out like what time slots I could take the GRE so it wouldn't overlap with preseason and I would still be on track and all these different things. Like I was jumping through hoops trying to get this GRE done, because I also knew that I would need to have a strong GRE score for me to actually get into graduate school, because I didn't have the experience in the lab. Like, again, everyone else had experience from their freshman year, whereas I was someone who had like a few semesters of experience. So I was like, okay, I really need to have like a strong GRE score, focusing specifically on the math, because that's really what they care about in engineering. And that's what I'm going to do. So I got my scores back. They were great. I was really, really happy that I only had to take the exam once, because also, again, it conflicted with my field hockey schedule. And luckily, my coach is honestly really on board with me doing everything. She was like, even if you need a letter of rec, like whatever you need from me, I will support you going to graduate school so we can like figure out the funding and like whatever it is that you need, we can figure it out. And at the same time, like I said, I spoke to my professor and I was like, hey, I do want to start going to conferences again, because I need to boost my CV so that I would be like an attractive student to get into graduate school. So he agreed, and he started sending me different conferences to apply to. And I was like, I don't know any of these things. Like, and he was like, I don't know any of these places either. And I'm like, okay, so both of us have never been to these conferences. We don't know anyone there. So we're just going to like kind of shoot in the dark and see what happens. So I applied to a few, and so did my coworker friend who's also in the research lab. And we were both accepted to 2 different conferences. Now, the conference that I was accepted to was supposed to happen in the spring semester. So it actually wasn't going to be helpful for me for my applications, because my applications were due by Thanksgiving. So even though I had applied, I wouldn't really know if I would be accepted until basically December. And that was after I was supposed to submit all of my documents for like the applications. One thing though I want to note is when I had started to formulate my application, so I had my GRE score, I had my CV, and I needed to have letters of rec. And there was one professor that I asked for a letter of rec, and to be honest, she really wasn't my favorite, but she was the person that I had the most classes with throughout my entire undergraduate career. And she had honestly offered to write me a letter of rec. And I was like, that was so random, because like me and this woman, professor, we were not tight. Like I really was not not her biggest fan. And out of all the professors I had, like, she wouldn't have been on the list, but she offered. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give this woman a chance, whatever. So she sent me a form for me to fill out, right? For like all of the activities and extracurriculars and all these things I've been a part of. And I was like, this just feels like such a automated process. Like, I didn't feel like she would be like a genuine person to write my letter of rec for me, because she had a form for me to fill out. Like, I'm like, if someone knew me genuinely, they wouldn't have to have a form for me to fill out to then write their letter of rec. But I was like, you know what? We're just going to go to the meeting and see what she has to say. Because one of my friends too, that at this point I did have friends in my engineering program, but my friend, she was like, you know, she actually gave me some really good feedback on my application. So she can probably do the same for you. Just give her a chance and see what she has to say in this meeting. And, you know, if she doesn't write the letter for you, or if you don't want her to, then you don't have to submit it. And I was like, okay, cool. So I go to the meeting with this professor, and she had already read my my personal statement. And I remember before the meeting, she was like, I really need to talk to you about a personal statement. I just feel like this isn't right. And I was like, what? Excuse me? So I go to the meeting with her, and she's like, yeah, this is what you're supposed to have in your personal statement. And she gave me like a paragraph by paragraph kind of outline of how it's supposed to go. Because my personal statement was really like a story. It was like me talking like I am right now, but it was just like written on a piece of paper. And she was like, no, you need to talk more about science. You need to talk about what you're interested in. You need to talk about who you would want to work with. And you do this for specific schools. And I was like, well, this is now like a lot more. Like, you're asking me to change my entire application a week and a half before that I'm supposed to submit them, also knowing that finals are about to come up, because it wasn't finals, but I had a bunch of exams lined up right before the Thanksgiving break. So I was like, this is wildly inconvenient. Like, what? And she was like, no, you really need to change, just because like this doesn't tell me who you are as a scientist, but more so as a person. And I was like, all right, fine. But then she goes, so why are you applying for master's programs? And I was like, because I don't want to be in school for that long, and I'm really kind of like just doing this so I can get the drug delivery experience, and then I can go into the job field and, you know, like have a drug delivery related job. And she was like, well, you can just apply. She was like, you can just apply for PhD programs because you have all of the requirements on paper, and they will pay for you to get your master's along the way. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? That sounds like extra work. And she was like, no. The way it works is, if I have a PhD student who wants to master out, like technically I have already paid for their education through their master's program. So I can give them a master's degree. They can master out. It doesn't cost them any money. And, you know, they can go about their business and they still get a master's, but it's for free, as opposed to you applying for a master's program and you having to pay through applying through the master's program. And I was like, oh, so I can get a master's for free is what you're saying. And she was like, bingo, do it that way. And she was like, you have all the requirements, like the GRE scores were still there. My GPA was also there. And also, if I had rewritten my application to what she was saying, it would also be there to show the committee that I was a reliable graduate student, that I would be like a good person for a PhD program. So she was like, you have everything else. You just need to apply for the PhD program as opposed to the master's program. And that's like an additional like $10 or something for the fee. Like, you should just do it. So I was like, okay, fine. So my plan going into this was, I am going to go to these PhD programs, these recruitment programs. I'm going to apply as a PhD student. And then I'm going to master out, right? So I'm gonna be there for 2 years, right? I'm gonna get my master's and I'm gonna dip. So I redo my applications. I submit them around Thanksgiving, and then like the rest of the semester continues, right? I have finals, the semester ends, and then I am still trying to figure out if I'm going to this conference, because what happened was, during the time that I was rewriting my application, there was actually a hurricane in Florida, and the hurricane hit the area where the conference was supposed to be. So they were like, oh, we don't know if we're gonna have the conference because there was a hurricane. So everything was up in the air, right? I was like, I don't really know what's going on, but like, I guess they'll let me know, you know, if I'm going to go or not, because the conference was supposed to be during the winter semester, so like during winter break. And I was already planning to go to the Caribbean with my friends. Like, I was like, listen, me and the girls, we're going on a little girls trip. Okay, it's all inclusive. We're going to drink the entire week and just have fun. So like, if I don't go to this conference, then I don't go to this conference. Like, I really don't care. So right before I ended up leaving for winter break, it was confirmed that the conference was still on and that I was going to go. So I booked everything. And it just so happened that the day that I returned from the conference from Florida was like a few hours before I had to leave to go to the airport again, but a different airport in the area to go to the Dominican Republic with my friends. So I was like, whatever, it worked out. It's fine. I don't care. This is cool. So I go to the conference, like I get my poster and everything. I go to this conference and I very quickly realized that I am the only undergrad student there. And I was like, this is so weird. Oh my gosh, this was a huge mistake. Right. So first of all, I didn't even know the area. I wasn't familiar with the conference. I wasn't familiar with the type of work they were doing. I don't even know why I was accepted, because technically my research wasn't even in the same like niche as this conference. Like it was completely and totally, like, again, my research was like orthopedic science, and this was a materials conference. It was like drug delivery and materials. I don't remember the name of the conference. Isn't that insane? So anyway, I go there, I put in my poster, and I'm like, I'm here. Whatever. Like, at least I'm in a nice destination and I get to hang out, and like no one's gonna ask me any questions because they don't know anything about my research, because it's not even in the same field as everyone else. So like it's fine. So I went to a bunch of talks, which by the way, this was a very small conference. There were like 350-ish people, which I didn't realize it was a small conference until I got into graduate school and realized that an average size conference was like 10,000 people. So yeah, this one was tiny, but I went anyway. And they had these like mentoring lectures that you could sign up for. And I decided to sign up because I was like, well, I'm the youngest person here, so that means that I have so much opportunity for mentors to tell me, what to do for graduate school. So I went to the mentoring lunch. I met a few graduate students, but one of the people that I was paired with, like at my table, was actually the department chair for this school that I had never even heard of, with the BME program. So she sits down next to me and we're talking, and I'm like, yeah, I'm an undergrad. I'm waiting to hear back from graduate schools. I'm interested in BME, but specifically drug delivery within BME. And I really like, cancer related research, but I'm trying to understand, like, what should I be asking or what should I be looking for when I go to different recruit weekends, when I hear back from the schools that I've been accepted to. And she was like, did you apply to my school? And I was like, no, ma'am, I didn't know your school had a BME PhD program. And she was like, well, our application deadline passed, but I could put in the application for you. Like, do you want to apply? But and I was like, ma'am, I don't even know you. I don't know the school. Like, what type of research do you guys do? Like, and she's like, well, actually, our faculty that's within the drug delivery realm, they're all here. So I can introduce you to them tonight at the dinner if you want to. And I was like, I wasn't even planning on going to this dinner, but yeah, sure, I'll go to the dinner, no problem. So I go to the dinner, and she does as she says. So she introduced me to the professors, and they're like, yeah, we are interested in having you apply to our school. Just send us an email when you get back with your information, and we will get that application through. And I was like, oh, this is odd, but fine. Okay. So I send them my application before I get on my flight. I remember this directly because I had issues with the Wi-Fi, but I send them my application, and they're like, hey, we need you to adjust these things on the application for like formatting purposes. It was something that only I could do on my end. Don't know why, but they're like, we need you to format it. And I was literally packing to go to Dominican Republic. I'm like, girl, I just need like bathing suits, and I need dresses and heels and makeup. And like, that was all my mind was focused on. I'm like, I want to go on vacation, but they're like, we need you to submit this application. So again, this is now the second airport within the last 24 hours that I'm in, and I'm emailing them like all my application materials. And I go on the vacation. I have a great time. I get back and they say, you've been accepted to our program. This is our welcome weekend. We would love to have you visit, to see if you like the school. So I was like, wow, this was weird. I really don't know what to expect from the school, but like whatever. At the same time, I did get another acceptance from two schools. So the one school that I was already going to, and at my undergrad institution, basically, and then another, which was, oh my gosh, I don't even remember the name. That's so bad. It was in Maryland. So I was like, oh, it's also close by. So it was Delaware, University of Delaware, Rowan University, which is my undergrad, and then this other school. Oh my gosh, what is the name of it? It was not Maryland University, but it was Maryland. So I go to Delaware's recruitment weekend. not expecting a single thing. I was just like, I'm going to go meet people and see if I like it. And I went there and I actually really enjoyed it. And one thing that I want to note is that I had no idea what type of research I wanted to work on because, again, I didn't really do extensive research on this school or the professors or their research. I just met the department chair at a dinner. Like, I was like, I don't know these people. So even though I did like look into them briefly, I really didn't have a good idea of the school. But at the same time, I also didn't even know what I wanted to do after graduate school. So it wasn't like everyone else I had met, they like had some type of idea of what they wanted to do with their research afterwards, where I was like, I'm just here to kind of like get my master's and leave. I don't really know. So I went to the weekend and just kept an open mind. Like everyone that gave a talk about their research, I just listened to them and I was like, oh, these things sound interesting. I picked my top 3 and those are people that I met with during the like different interview sections. And I remember really liking the students that were there. I also really remember liking the professors that were there. Of course, there were a few people here and there that I was like, I don't really jive with you, but like whatever. But it was also important to me to also like the recruits because these were people that I would be in school with if I decided to go to the school. So I met with everybody, talked with everyone, and I was like, oh, okay, this seems like a cool option. I don't really know if I would come here. So like when I left, I was like, this was a cool experience. However, I don't know if I would come to this school. And what's so funny is that one of the professors who ended up becoming my mentor during my graduate program, he was like, when you left, we said to each other, India is a huge question mark. We have no idea if she likes it or hates it. Like, we don't know what's happening. And that's genuinely how I felt. I had no idea if I liked it or hated it. I was just kind of like, that was an interesting experience. Everyone was fine. I'm going to go home now. But it wasn't until I went to the second school's recruit weekend. So this was in Maryland. Goddamn, was it in Baltimore? I don't remember. Anyway, it wasn't until that weekend that I realized that I actually liked Delaware and I did not like the school that I was at. So it kind of helped for me to have 2 different schools so I could compare them to be like, oh, I like this about the recruitment weekend. I didn't like this. But with that second school, I realized I only liked like 2 of the recruits and I only liked 1 professor, which didn't give me a lot of options because in each graduate program you rotate of some sort or you like basically try out different advisors to see if you would be a good match for them as well as liking their research. So at this second school, I only had 1 option that I genuinely liked, like as a person and research wise. And then I also only liked like 2 of the students, which there was no guarantee that I was going to even go to school with them because they had been interviewing at like Harvard and stuff. So I was like, oh, I don't know if these kids are even going to go to this school. So I'm not going to count on that. And I'm not going to count on just having 1 option of a professor here at this school. So it seemed like Delaware was a better option for me where the cost of living was pretty reasonable for what they were offering. There was different research options that I was interested in. They also like had the facilities and the funding. So like funding wasn't going to be an issue. I didn't have the TA for years and years and years. So I was like, okay, I think this is it because I also know I don't want to stay here in New Jersey. Like I'm going to go. So I ended up going to University of Delaware. And during my first year, so this is pre-COVID, COVID happened in 2020, which is my second year. So my first year and a half, my life was a living hell. It was awful. So I didn't realize it though. I kind of had like different intuitive nudges of like, girl, you should be doing something else. Like this ain't really for you. And that first time that I kind of had that intuitive nudge was when I went to a Black graduate student program. It was kind of like a meet and greet / chat for the beginning of the semester. I didn't know these people. Everyone were in different programs. So, there wasn't like a engineering type of meetup. It was just kind of like anyone Black that was a graduate student that, could come. But I do remember that the woman who was in charge and had, organized the program and kind of created this safe space, she was a former engineer who had a PhD, who worked as an engineer and ended up leaving engineering to do her current job, which was, I think, just like programming. Or maybe it was something else. I'm sure she had a different title. I don't remember her title. But I remember her telling her story and being like, I relate to this so much. I feel like I'm in the wrong place. Like, I feel like engineering is not the right fit for me. But I didn't know what would be the right fit, right? So in my mind, I'm in this PhD program. They're paying for me to go to school. And I don't know what else to do. So I'm kind of just like lingering in this space. But that was like the first time I had this like intuitive nudge of like, girl, you're supposed to be doing something else. But basically my life every day was waking up, going to the lab. Then I would stop and go to class. I would somehow eat lunch And then by lunch, I mean like half a sandwich, maybe a bag of chips, something very random. And then I would go back to the lab and I would be there for a few hours. I would go to maybe a class or two. I did not go to my classes that often, I will admit that. And then I would go back to the lab. So my life was in the lab. I left my house in the mornings at I would leave at, I think, 8 a.m. and I wouldn't come back until 8 p.m. Because at one point I was like, my life is kind of really sad. I need to start to at least exercise because like the only thing I'm doing is walking on campus and going and walking around the lab. So I decided to sign up for workout classes at some point, and that was one of the main things that I looked forward to throughout the week. So I would go to 2 workout classes per week, and that was my excitement for the week. Like that was literally it. So after about the first 4 months, I went back to New Jersey to hang out with my friends. A lot of my friends from undergrad were most of them were actually still in South Jersey, so I can go back and visit them anytime I wanted. But I would go back and complain and be like, yo, I hate this. These people suck. I don't like this. Oh my gosh. And it wasn't that it was like the people that I worked with suck. It was just like the entire environment itself. Like I felt like everyone was very serious all the time. Like there was very few lighthearted moments, and if they were lighthearted, I didn't think they were actually funny. Like if you ever go to your corporate job and you're sitting in a meeting and like everyone's laughing about something and you're kind of looking around of like, that's not even funny. Like why? What? Like that was the moment I had every single day, on top of sitting in meetings where we would spend 20 minutes talking about the font on a chart. Like what font should the chart be? And I'd be like, are you kidding me? There are so many more important decisions in life other than a font, or where the tick marks were on a graph, or what the color scheme was for 3 different slides. Like it was absolutely insanity to me to sit in these meetings and pretend to be interested. Like I was just like, this literally, quite literally could be an email. But everyone else treated like it was the most normal thing. They're like, of course we spent 20 minutes talking about different fonts. Of course we spent, 15 minutes talking about what to include on, the thank you slide. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was so dumb. I thought it was so dumb. But again, I didn't know what else I wanted to do. So I was like, just get the damn masters. That's all you got to do. Just get the masters. So 2020 comes. I decide I'm going to start dating because that at least will make life interesting. And then the pandemic hits in March, right? So we all go home. And this is really the turning point of my graduate school career, because this is where I realized that like there is more to life than school. There is more to life than work. There is more to life than what I was doing. And I will be the first, last, and only one to tell you that I enjoyed every second of the shutdown. Oh my gosh, I loved it so much. I loved waking up and doing whatever the hell I wanted every day. I loved not having to talk to my coworkers every single day. Now, I loved that everything was just an email. And if it needed to be a Zoom, it was a Zoom, but I would just turn off my camera and walk away. Like I loved everything about it. I started to paint again. I started crocheting again. I started doing yoga again. I started working out regularly. I was so fit. I had abs by the end of that shutdown. I started seeing my family again, which I had never, I would see my family literally only at Christmas. All of a sudden now I see my family all the time. I was like, this is the best thing ever. I would go on walks around my neighborhood. I would meet my neighbors and I would talk to my neighbors, which they had never even seen me because again, I would be going from 8 to 8 every single day. So they were like, oh, we knew there was a car here on the weekend sometimes, but we didn't know who you were. It got to the point where I was cutting the grass and I was happy about it. I was happily cutting the grass. And if you know me, again, if you've been following my vlogs week to week, then you see, I don't be cutting any grass over here. I now live in LA, spoiler alert. But I loved the shutdown period so much, to a point where I became incredibly depressed when I went back to work. And we were somehow, I don't know why, considered phase 2, even though my research was definitely not at all even related to COVID research, but somehow my advisor made it so, I don't know, maybe it was a school who did it. Somebody approved my lab to go back in person and work. And it was the dumbest part of my graduate school experience. It was so stupid. I could only go to lab for 4 hours a day. And even then, you had to wipe down everything. You couldn't go into certain rooms. You couldn't access certain things. So I was doing about half of the science that I would do in a week. It was so incredibly pointless. It was I couldn't get anything done, but somehow I was pressured to get things done. And also we were being scolded for not getting things done, even though we were only working 4 hours a day. And also we all couldn't use the equipment at the same time because everything had to be sanitized in between every single user. Stupid. So I was very depressed at that point. I think it was about a 3 month period where I only went to work and I only went home. And I had a lot of really, really, really dark thoughts at that time. And I remember calling my dad and being like, I don't like this. I don't trust myself. I don't feel safe with myself. I don't feel like I can do this anymore. Like I was just like talking, and my dad was in Maryland. So he was a few hours away, and he would call me every few hours just to make sure that I would still answer the phone. Because I was just like, this doesn't make any, like, I don't like what I'm doing. I don't enjoy this. I hate this so, so much. So I ended up putting myself in therapy. So this was now my second time in therapy in graduate school. The first time I had gone to therapy was during my first year when I had qualifying exams. And I don't really know what made me want to go. Maybe it was that one meeting with all the Black people and that Black woman that I was like, something's not right here. But something did strike me to go to therapy. So I went, and then I was there for I think I had 6 sessions. It was completely free, thankfully. And then after that point, I stopped because they were like, oh, you don't need treatment anymore. So I was like, oh, okay. So I ended up going back to therapy during this time, and I had weekly sessions, and it was at a point where I was like, the only thing I look forward to is my therapy session because I hate the rest of my life. So at this point though, I was creating content. So I did start creating content officially in May of 2020. That was when I was like, I'm going to start a blog. And this is so funny because I don't blog anymore. But my blogging website was really to help other graduate students. So I would have different tabs for people who wanted to go to graduate school, what to put in your application, and how to make yourself an attractive applicant. I would have tips on my Instagram. I would have tips for people who were currently graduate students. It was my relief most days until it wasn't, right? So I think when I started to go back to work, I realized I actually really do hate science, and I don't want to talk about this on Instagram. I don't want to talk about this on a blog. I just don't even want to be bothered anymore. So I started to talk about other parts of my life, like books and activities that I did outside of school, and just things that I were interested in, where I was traveling to, because at that point we were kind of allowed to travel a little bit to different nearby conferences. And I did grow my social media for more than I thought I would. I think by the end of that year, I had 2,000 Instagram followers, so it wasn't anything, but it was pretty cool for me because I was meeting people who were also Black scientists that were also going through the same thing, that were also kind of struggling in the same areas. And I was like, oh, okay, this isn't that bad. I kind of enjoy it. Let me see if I can plug in my charger so this does not die while I'm talking. I'm back. I couldn't plug in the camera, so I'm just going to speed up the rest of the story. So anywho, now that COVID was kind of gone away, but not really, I was really looking at ways and other jobs that I could do outside of this degree, because I did get my master's, thankfully. But because I got my master's during the pandemic when everyone was at home, I couldn't really leave, because if I left, I wouldn't have any income. And if I didn't have any income, I wouldn't be able to stay alive, right? Also, nobody was hiring at the time too, because everyone had actually just gotten laid off because of COVID. So it wasn't the time to be looking for a job. When I got my master's, I was like, okay, I guess I'm staying for my PhD, because literally who's going to hire me in the middle of a life-threatening pandemic? No one. So I ended up staying for the PhD part. And as the years went by, or really the months went by, I was talking to my therapist, I need to do something else for my career, because I know this is not it. I need to do something else. So through social media, I started to meet other people. So people in Philadelphia who were also Black girl engineers, Black girl scientists. And I kind of had this community in real life, but they were on my phone. And I really wanted to start to meet people in person, so I could actually have friends outside of graduate school. Because at this point, everyone that I knew that was in my everyday life was all from or related to graduate school. And I was like, I just want to get away from everything that's related to this and have my own life that is separate from school. So I ended up meeting and hanging out with people from the internet, which isn't as weird as it sounds. But it was my first time meeting people online and starting to make friends as an adult, right? No one teaches you how to make friends as an adult, especially when you're in graduate school, because you're not a whole adult. That's at least what we would tell ourselves when we were in graduate school. But it was just a very weird time. And also because like no one really knew how to socialize either because of COVID. Like it was just bizarre. But I started to meet people and make friends anyway. And through those friends, I would meet other people, right? So I had this now separate community of people that were not all related to my graduate school life, but knew that I was in graduate school. And then my graduate school friends, and like the people that I just like saw at work and stuff every day. So with that new group of people, I was like, I need to explore other options. So they would help me. Most of them all had jobs. No, they all had jobs, and like really good jobs too. So scientists, like people who worked at Goldman Sachs, people who worked at BCG, a bunch of consultants at McKinsey. And people who worked in tech, like I was very well connected to people in the real world who could get me a job, or at least help me get my foot in the door to get another job. So I remember studying for the consultant exam. So for McKinsey and like any of the top 3 consultant agencies or firms, you had to take like a interview not quiz. It was like a questionnaire. It's a very weird process, but I was studying for that because I was like, I'll just be a consultant. And what I realized very quickly through that whole process was that one, I really hated the interviewing because it just felt very, again, like kind of automated. Like they were just like, all right, this is what we're gonna do. All right, this, like it wasn't personalized at all. And I was like, I just feel like a cog in the machine. I also had noted that anyone who had a PhD or who was from any higher education programs who worked there, they were like, oh yeah, I'm only doing this for a year and then I'm gonna move on. So like the turnover was insane because the hours were insane. So those same people would be like, yeah, I'm only working here for a year or two, but I also work more than what I used to work in graduate school. I was like, oh hell no, I'm not doing that. You are not. Yeah, I don't care how much money you're offering. I'm not gonna work more than what I'm working right now, just for the sake of having a title at this company or whatever it is. So even though I did a interview for McKinsey, I ended up dropping out of my interviews for BCG and Bain was the other one. Like I was accepted as, like they were like, oh, you got an interview. And I was like, actually, I don't want an interview. You got it. Like, and they were like, are you sure you want to drop out? And I'm like, I'm sure. I do not want this job. Don't give me this job because I'm not going to take it. I don't want it. So I ended up dropping out of it and I was like, all right, back to square one. So I started to explore tech and I was like, okay, maybe I can get a tech job. And like at the time, everyone on TikTok was like, tech is the best. Like we get free food. We get to leave for our dentist and doctor's appointments. We get to work on, in different projects. Like, and because they were creators too, I also knew that they were business owners because this was also the same time that people were starting to monetize TikTok and get like serious brand deals on TikTok, at least like on the side of TikTok that I was on. And I too was also getting brand deals from TikTok. So I was like, okay, these people are allowed to have their own side business and work at their job, and their job environment seems pretty okay. Versus when I was interviewing with consultants, they were like, oh, you can't like run your own business if you work here. Like you can't have any side jobs if you work here. So no. So I was like, oh, immediately no. So anyway, started looking at different tech jobs, and I was like, yeah, I really don't even want to do this. Like, I don't think this is the right fit for me either. Now, all the while, I was still making money from social media. And at the time, my like most stable source of income was actually Pinterest, which a lot of people sleep on and were sleeping on at the time. But Pinterest had this creator fund where you could like post content and get paid for pretty much like views for the content. And I was making like over $2,000 a month from Pinterest alone, not including my brand deals that I was getting. So I had at least like 6 brand deals around that time that I was looking at jobs. So I was getting experience in brand deals. I also was already getting PR. Like I was on my content creator game. I had a process. I would record a bunch of content on the weekends and then I would post it throughout the day during the week. And then at night times, I would also record different content in my bed. And like most of my videos, by the way, were me recording, just like talking and yapping like I am right now. But I was also in a bonnet and there would be videos that would just go viral like overnight. TikTok was an insane time at the time. And it's also a really cool app. And I just like really enjoyed my life on social media so much. Like I was like, this is really cool. I love that I'm able to do this. And I want to continue to be able to do this. But when I decided that tech really wasn't for me, and there wasn't like one moment I was like, oh yeah, this definitely isn't it. It was kind of just like collective moments of like, oh, I would have to, do this, or like I would be an engineer under tech, which I didn't want to do. Or if I wanted to have like a project management position. I would have to be, overseeing much people. I was just like, none of this sounds appealing, like something that I would want to get up and do every single day. And one important thing I really want to talk about is that my therapist made me make a list of all the things that I wanted in my dream job. And when she told me to do this, I was like, this is kind of really stupid because like my dream job doesn't exist. And she was like, all right, we'll just talk about the different like qualities that you want in your job. And I remember putting like, I want to be able to wake up without an alarm every single day. I want to be excited to go to work every single day and like excited to do what it is I do. I want to work with people who are aligned with me, that have same, not just beliefs, but also like same values as I did. I also wanted to be able to run my content creation business. So I wanted to be creative. I wanted to be able to use my left brain, which is what I said. I wanted to be able to have a morning routine during my job, so I wouldn't be like rushed on my morning routine. I can just like do it. And I also said like I wanted it to have like an income that could provide me a luxurious lifestyle where I could also travel and get paid to travel. Like I listed the most unrealistic things on this list. And I was like, I know this job does not exist. And she was just like, let's just see, as you're looking at different jobs, just see what jobs have what and kind of just go through it that way. So as I'm like going to these like different tech jobs, like looking at things online and talking to different people. And like, I would even have like coffee meetings with people that I would meet at different parties. That's absolutely insane. Let's back up for a moment. I would go out with these friends that I had met like through, content creation, and we would go meet people like in the club. I'm not even kidding. In clubs, like in bars, and they would tell me their jobs and I would be like, oh my gosh, wait, I think this is the job that I want to do. Like, is it okay if we like meet over coffee, next week, or like meet over Zoom? And they'd be like, yeah, sure. And I would literally like interview these people like a few days later. And then I would be like, thanks so much for your time, but I actually hate your job, but I appreciate it. So I was trying so hard to find a job, like someone who had a job that I wanted, that was like appealing to me in all these different ways, that matched everything on this list. It's kind of crazy when you're like drunk at a club and you're like, oh, wait, can I interview you on Tuesday at 4 p.m. so I can talk about your job and see if I actually want to do it myself? And people would agree to it. I guess, I don't know, pretty privilege or whatever. But anywho, it came down to a moment where I was scrolling on TikTok and someone was talking about how much money they had made from TikTok alone. And again, this was the only platform that I had really monetized in terms of brand deals. At this time, Pinterest is also kind of going away with the creator program, which doesn't exist, unfortunately, anymore because it was so good. But Pinterest is about to get rid of it. So I was like, okay, this person is only monetizing from TikTok. I'm only monetizing from TikTok. Like, can I make this into a full-time income? So I set this goal of, I think it was like 3 months of rent in LA, because all the jobs I interviewed for, by the way, were all in Los Angeles. At the time, I was in Delaware, so I was staying up late at night to be able to interview for these jobs in Los Angeles because I knew I wanted to live there. So that was also a part of the list. So I was like, oh, let's see if I can make enough money to like accommodate a luxury lifestyle or like a nice, comfortable lifestyle in LA. And if I can do it by the end of the year. And don't you know it, I literally got 2 brand deals that year that put me over my goal for my content creation goal for that year, but also was the amount that I needed to be able to be full-time in LA. And I was like, oh, this is it. Like, oh, we're definitely doing this for sure. So at this point I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to leave graduate school because like now I know I'm going to move to LA. In between this of like trying to figure out how to leave, I did take a trip to LA to try to find my dream apartment, which also was a long list of very unrealistic expectations, or so everyone told me, but I ended up finding it. So I actually had that manifestation story on my YouTube already. But I came over to LA, I found my apartment, I went back to Delaware, and I was like, okay, girl, we are out. We are leaving. We're not doing this anymore. Like, this time of your life is over. And I went back to graduate school and I just knew I'm like, I'm leaving. It's kind of like when you go to your annual review, and your boss is like, yeah, this is what we're gonna do for next year. This is what we're projecting and blah, blah. And you're just like, yeah. But like, you're not gonna be there next year. You're like, I'm putting my 2 weeks next week, but yeah, keep going. Yeah. Like, that's exactly what I was doing that whole time. I was like, this is great. Like, nobody knows I'm leaving, but I'm out. So, a few weeks went by. Again, I'm like walking on sunshine in my mind because I just have it that I'm leaving. And I got a random email one day of a girl from California, Southern California, who was asking to hire me for a ski trip campaign where I would be modeling as a skier. And she was like, yeah, I found your content on TikTok and I was wondering if you want to do this campaign with me, with my agency and everything. Like, we'll fly you out, you'll be here, you'll be in the commercial, you'll do this, da da da. And I was like, oh, bet this is the sign I am leaving. Like, God did it. Like, I'm ready to go. So I went to my boss and I was like, yeah, so actually I'm leaving. Like, I quit this job. I don't even care about a PhD anymore. Like, I have another job. I'm going to move to LA. I already have a place. So, if you want me to finish my PhD, I can, but like, I really don't even care if I finish or not. Like, I'm really ready to go. So I told her I had a job, which I did. So it was that job that I had was a part of an agency, and they were going to hire me for a bunch of different like travel campaigns where I'll be paid to travel and be like a model of these campaigns. And the one that she had started me on was with skiing. So my advisor was like, yeah, we can let you leave, but like you can't go anywhere for like this ski campaign. Like, you need to be here and working. So for the next few days, like I kind of went back and forth with the agency of like getting me on other campaigns, which ended up working out. But I didn't go for that specific skiing campaign. So I was really upset about that. And I think that was really a driving factor to make me be like, oh yeah, we are leaving. Like, I wanted so badly to be able to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. And I was not allowed to do that with this current job. Like, kind of like, it was at this point, it was getting in the way of other opportunities through my content creation. And I was like, it's time to go. Like, I know I'm done with this. I'm so over it. I'm leaving. So together we had kind of come up with an idea. Like, so myself, my advisor, my committee, we're like, all right, you need to finish your research, at least like these bits of experiments, and then you can write your dissertation from LA. So I ended up moving. No one thought it was going to happen because, by the way, I did not have my third aim done. Typically you have 3 aims in a PhD. At the time that I said I was leaving, I had, I think like 3 out of 6 experiments done. So I had half of my experiments done for my last aim. And I was like, I really don't care if this is done. Like, I'm leaving regardless. But I ended up getting it done 2 weeks before my deadline. And I paid to myself and I left. I said, this is over. We're done with this. I'm not doing this anymore. So now that I'm at 16% on my camera, then my life, 2 years since leaving, well, really, it's almost been 3. Well, no, it's August. So almost 2 years or over 2 years. Why is math so hard for me right now? Anyway, now that I am a full-time creator and I have been doing it for over 2 years, I will say that this has been the most craziest, psychotic, unexpected, delusional job I have ever done in my entire life. I've had so many jobs in my life where I've worked at nursing homes, I've worked in retail, I've worked for Amazon delivering packages, I've tutored people, I have coached kids, I have done so many different things, but this is by far the craziest job I've ever had my entire life. I work very minimally, but make more money than I have ever had before in any job that I've ever worked. And I think the best part about it is that the job that I have now, being a travel creator, I have every single element that I manifested on that list from years ago when I was talking to my therapist and crying about how I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life and where I was going. So I think it's just a testament to show that you can really create your own reality. And I know people are talking about manifestation and how like popular it is and how people are like, oh, it's just a big cock, like, it's woo woo, whatever. It's actually real science. It's neuroscience. But even if you don't believe in science for whatever reason, there are so many ways for you to test to see if it works for yourself, where you don't have to do like, some crazy job. You can do something like really small, like manifesting, a bouquet of flowers for yourself in the next week. I don't know. But I love that I left. I love that I live my life that I do now. I love that I don't have to answer anybody that I don't want to. I don't have to work on any projects that I don't want to. I love that I can manage my time how I want to. That isn't to say that there aren't any specific challenges, because there are a lot of very different challenges with being a content creator that a lot of people don't talk about or don't even address online for really good reason. But I will say that I have never been happier about my career than what I am right now. And not just that, but when I moved to LA, it was almost like just a switch flicked for me, where I was miserable before. I was so sad. I hated getting up and going to work every single day. And now that I live in LA and I'm doing my dream job and I'm living the life that I've wanted, I have genuinely felt so much lighter in existing every single day. And so much so that my parents recognized it within the first like 2 months of me living here. They were just like, you were so different. You seem so happy. You seem like you really enjoy yourself. And like, we haven't seen this side of you in so long. And for a while, I thought that side of me just kind of disappeared. Like, I didn't think that like life was happy. But now, whenever I talk to people that are also questioning their career and questioning what they're doing with their lives, I'm like, do you smile every day? Like, genuinely, like, I'm not even trying to be like a smart ass of like, you need to smile more, but like, do you actually like laugh every day? Like, do you like feel like there's something that you have to be grateful for every single day? Because your dream life doesn't look like mine. It probably won't, and it shouldn't. Like, everyone has their own different dreams, but it's so different when you interact and meet someone who genuinely just loves what they do versus someone who is kind of just settling, or like they're like, oh, well, this is as good as it gets. Like, no, it can get a hell of a lot better. And maybe your dream life is to not work at all. Maybe you want to be a stay-at-home dad. I don't know. Like, whatever it is, like, it is so completely and totally possible, but you have to be able to believe in yourself first to even make it happen. And I talk about on my channel so many different things. I have a whole playlist on content creator tips on how to become a UGC creator, how to become a travel creator. I just did a mini series on how to get started with UGC content so that if you don't have any followers, you can still make money from creating content. So the whole series is there on YouTube for free for you to watch. So it's not like this life isn't accessible to you either, but it all starts with your mindset and knowing that it's possible for you. And like I said, I didn't know that this was even possible. Like, I told my therapist so many times, I was like, girl, this is so unrealistic. Why are you having me do this? This is such a waste of my time. Like, what do you mean? I'm not doing this. This is dumb. But she made me do it anyway. And she was right. She was so right. And I'm so grateful for that woman so much every single day, because whatever you want, like, you can change the rules. If you were a chef today, you can be a Pilates instructor tomorrow. Like, there are just so many different things that you can do with life, and I feel like people are just wasting it away. But if anything that you learn from this story is not only that you can also enjoy life and make money and be happy while doing it, but that you can create whatever reality that you want at any given time. So if you're someone that really enjoys watching people have fun on the internet, I do vlog every single week, and I'll take you guys on different trips with me. I take you just through my everyday life here in LA, also through whatever I'm doing, because I do a lot of random things at all times. But I also talk a lot about content creation, being a business owner, and what that really means for me, and how I've been able to do it in a way that aligns with me as a person, with my values, with my self-worth, with my confidence, with all of it, and how it is just as accessible to you as well. So hopefully this whole video series was helpful for you in some way. If you guys want me to talk about something else, let me know down in the comments, and I will just see you in the next one. And I finished this before my camera died. All right, I'll see you guys later. Bye.